Hello friends and welcome along to the first episode of my new podcast, The Hookup with Crochet Me Zaddy. In today's episode we have a special resident guest, Croutonscrochet, and she'll be hanging out with us for the next 3 episodes talking about all things social media and craft and crochet alike. It's going to be a very exciting time. It is a new podcast, so don't mind the audio and the video. I am a very beginner at editing all these things and I'm excited to develop and improve on these things, so just stick with it and stick for the entertainment value that we provide. Thanks everyone, and looking forward to hearing about how you receive the podcast and all your feedback, and let's grow together, let's have fun together, let's just have a good time. Okay, see you there. Hello everyone, and welcome to The Hookup with Crochet Me Zaddy, and welcome to our special guest, Croutonscrochet. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you? I'm so excited to be the first guest.
Woo! Wait, I'm gonna play. Is that really loud? I'm so sorry. Anyway. Well, thank you so much for coming over onto the pod and being my first guest here, and I'm very excited to have you and excited to get into everything we're going to talk about. On today's agenda, we've got 3 main topics we're going to get through, as I explained to you, but I'll explain to the audience as well. I'm going to bring you through 3 different topics that we're specifically talking about, which I believe you are an expert in. I'm hoping, I've seen evidence online, but we're going to be talking about yourself, your personal journey, and your social media growth, your challenges and your strategies regarding social media and crochet in the social media, and your outlook and what the future looks like for crochet in social media, as well as a little bit about community engagement. So exciting things up ahead.
I am so excited. I feel like we're gonna have so much to talk about.
Yeah, I know. I've been like holding back on literally everything. I keep thinking of little things just to talk about, and like there's like I was talking to Drew from Drewby Zoo last night about a bunch of social media things. I was like, I need to hold back like all my opinions and just like just wait for this moment. But let's just let's get right into it. Question number 1. Where did this all begin?
So honestly, like I started to learn about crochet sort of around like partway through the pandemic. Like I feel like that's when a lot of people took it up, and
Yeah.
I just like didn't know I could make my own stuffed animals. I'm like, that sounds like kind of cool and fun.
Yeah.
So I honestly, I've always been bad with my hands. Like I'm not artistic in like any other way. So I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. And a lot of my friends were like, we support you trying, but they're like, I don't know, because it's just so outside of anything I've done before. But
Yeah.
I ended up just trying it, and it was not easy at first, but once I got the hang of it, I just kind of became like obsessed with it. So it just kind of kept going from there.
Did you have someone teach you, or you like YouTube taught?
I just looked through like YouTube, yeah.
Yeah. And was there something that not triggered, but like something that inspired you right away to get like to start crocheting, or you're looking at other hobbies, or you just kind of like, I need something to pass the time?
I had been thinking like I wanted a different hobby. I had done like playing video games, things like that, but I felt like I just wanted like something else. And then when I started seeing videos of just like people crocheting stuffed animals, it just kind of like clicked, like that was it.
Yeah.
That was what I wanted. So it just, I was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna try.
Was it like was it on TikTok, and was it like a particular creator you remember?
Yeah, well, so one of them was definitely Allison from the Wonder Crochet, because this was again around the pandemic, and I was just playing a lot of Animal Crossing, and she was like crocheting a bunch of Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
and it's funny, I never like I was still like obviously just learning, so at that time I wasn't like up for learning how to do something as complex as those, but that was kind of like one of my end goals, and I still have not made one, so I feel like
an Animal Crossing character.
Yeah, I haven't made any, so I feel like now at some point I gotta make one, because that was kind of my whole original goal.
No, that was the same as me. I wanted to start off and like make all these Pokemon, and I was like, I want to make Pokemon plushies, and then I made like 1, 2, and only recently have I finally started like getting back into it.
It's so funny how that works. Yeah.
Yeah, you get so distracted by everything else you can make.
Yeah, it's like I didn't know that there's all these different options. So once I got into it, I was like, oh my gosh, like I just forgot about why I even wanted to do it in the first place.
Yeah. And so were you just crocheting, or did you like start a social media account around it like literally at the same time, and you're like, I'll post all this too?
No, like I didn't do it right at the same time, but it was like probably few months in that I decided to like just start posting a little bit, and I didn't know like what my goal would be with that, but
Yeah.
I was like, well, I should start. Like, I was like, well, I'm gonna start posting and maybe decide what I want to do. And like, I tried to
Yeah.
like have it prepared. Like, I was like, well, maybe I'd want to start selling my stuff, but I was like, I don't think I'm there yet. But so I kind of like
Yeah.
wanted to give myself those options. So like, I
Yeah.
started the social media account, and then I think it was like a few months after that that I actually ended up starting to like sell anything.
Wait, so you started selling plushies like right away?
No. Like, I was like,
Oh.
once I like a few months into like learn to crochet, then I
Yeah.
got social media, and then probably a few months after that is when I started considering selling. So it's probably like a good like 5 or 6 months after I learned to crochet that I started selling stuff
Yeah.
really.
What was there a reason why you started a crochet account in
I
particular?
honestly don't really know. Like, and it seems really unlike me. So I guess I must have had the intention to like want to sell stuff. I don't even remember now, but it must have been that because it seems very unlike me to want to just do something like that. So I feel like I
Yeah.
had to have just been inspired by like other crocheters and been like, well, maybe this could be something. I guess.
Yeah. Was it on Instagram first or was it TikTok first for you?
Yeah, so I did like Instagram and TikTok around the same time.
Yeah.
And then I kind of like just like stuck with doing those two mainly.
And so your account name is Croutons Crochet, which is named after your pug.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I was like, it's not a Frenchie, is it?
Yeah, the bug. But yeah, so it's named after her. Honestly, picking a name, it is so hard to find names that are available. And so I had so many ideas. I'm like, oh, this is genius. And then I look it up and it already exists. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
and it was the worst because half the time it's like an account that hasn't posted like for like years. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's so annoying. But one day I was just like with like petting my dog Crouton, and it sort of hit me like, oh my gosh, Croutonscrochet, and I like checked, made sure it was available everywhere. Thank God it was.
Yeah.
So that's kind of just what I went with. But
Yeah.
a lot of people do think my name is Crouton, which is interesting. So
Why would they think
I
your
like
name
I,
Crouton?
I've had and people have been like, I don't know, I just never questioned it. I just thought that was your name. It's like, okay. I'm like,
Well,
that's such an odd name, but for a human.
yeah, to be fair, I've said this before, but it's like talking to so many other creators on here and connecting with everyone. I don't really know anyone's names. I remember all their
Yeah,
usernames.
yeah. No, I know. I'm the same. And like sometimes one of my friends will be like, "Oh, blank," and I'm like, unless you tell me their username, I don't know. So
Yeah,
like I try my best, but it's hard.
yeah, like the only ones I fully remember their names are probably like Natalie from Twisted Hatter and Andrea from Wickedly Handmade. And everyone else, I'm kind of like, who?
Yeah.
Who are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
give me their username.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's hard to remember that many people's names, so I don't blame you.
So when you started your account, were you aiming to make things more crouton related, or were you just kind of, was there like a goal in mind, an aim, or were you just kind of posting for the fun of it?
I was just posting for the fun. I don't think I had any like specifics of what I was going for. Like I don't really think
Yeah.
I had like a clue, to be honest. I was just like posting whatever I was making and hoping people liked it.
Yeah. And did you, what was the reaction
I mean, at
from
first, like
people?
basically nothing. I mean, like, let's be real here. Like, not a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, not much when I first started. I think that's how it goes for most people. I especially on like Instagram, it took quite a while to get like even 100 followers. It took me like months, I feel. So
Yeah.
definitely slow at first. It wasn't like, I think the first thing that really sort of like when like that got any sort of like notoriety, or that I was like, oh wow, this actually is getting views and people like it, is when I made my first food animal. So it kind of, which was decently early on when I started posting. So it kind of like,
Okay.
it's funny, I kind of like fell into that. I just had the idea to
Yeah.
make one, which was the meatball jellyfish, and
Yep.
it just like, I just had that idea and I thought it'd be cool, and I posted it on TikTok, and I don't even think I had like my notifications on really. So then like I would just post stuff whenever I felt like it, and then whenever I'd check, I'd have like 5 likes or whatever, so it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
I went back the next day with my friends over, and I just like kind of absentmindedly opened the app, and I was like, oh my god, what is going on? And like I thought it was like, I mean, now I think it was like 30K views it got, but in my mind that could have been like 3 million. I was like, this
Yeah. You're
so,
like a
for me,
viral, let's go.
yeah, I just not like, my poor friend was over, and I just kept refreshing, be like, can you believe this? Like I just
Yeah.
was, like, so blown away by it. So that was sort of my first video that kind of like got sort of notoriety, and that was on TikTok. On Instagram, I
Yep.
still was like totally flopping. So honestly, it was so like I think I had, I don't even know, like well over like 10, 20K, 30K on TikTok before I hit anything close to that on Instagram. At some point, they clearly switched because now I'm have way more following on Instagram. But
I'm the same. I don't know what happened to TikTok. It just kind
yeah,
of just like started flatlining, and I was like, oh well.
yeah, exactly. Because I was like putting on, I was like, TikTok is it, and I was like, no, Instagram I'm just gonna have, but TikTok is the thing. And then at some point, I don't know, it just started. So
yeah.
I'm very thankful that things started doing better on Instagram because I just got lucky time wise. They sort of like as one did bad.
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same. I remember I was like, yeah, like I'm the crochet TikToker of New Zealand. And then once I moved to Australia, it kind of just really just like did not grow that much at all. Like it's still growing, but not to the same extent that Instagram popped off, which I don't know why Instagram did. Like, I don't know why any social medias really pop off, but they do. And so was that like your going viral in some sense? I guess like has two questions here. Has the sense of going viral changed for you since then? And was that your first instance of really wanting to like pursue a social media side to the crochet?
Yeah, so I think like in terms of has what going viral means changed, absolutely. Like now, like 30K is like a decent, like it's an okay video on Instagram.
Yeah.
Before that would have been like crazy. So I do think that's actually, I feel like, okay, we might get into this more as we go on, but like I think that's one of the interesting things about social media is that like as you grow, your expectations and like definitions of things almost changed based on like where you're at. And so it's like really interesting and can in some ways be kind of negative because if you like oh, these videos didn't do very well, I'm like, well, if I think about if like even a year ago I was maybe I would have been like ecstatic, right? So it's like it's so interesting how all those things change. Now I would say like I consider a video going like viral ish if like it gets over like 100 or like 1,000,000 views, maybe it would be like big. But like obviously like if a video gets like over 100K views, I'm like, that was a great video, I'm happy with it, right? Like I'm saying that was good video. But over 1,000,000 is when I'm like, oh, that was like really good.
Yeah.
The second part of your question.
I said, was that your first taste of like what like the almost like the power of social media, or like was that your first taste of like I don't know, getting that validation of social media? Was that what really led you to really pursue more of this?
I think it definitely did because for me that was also like the first thing I made totally from scratch. Like I had some of the other stuff I posted would have been like I took like a pattern that already, exists, but I'd like add my own little like features to it or something, but it wasn't like my own full creation. And that was my first thing I've ever posted. That was like something I made 100% myself. So it was really cool to see that out of all things got that reaction. So I think that was a huge motivator for me, honestly. Like I wasn't at a point where I was like hating social media or whatever. Like I didn't fully get it. So like I do think it definitely helped me stay more motivated to, keep going at it. But I do think like it, if it didn't happen at that exact time, I still would have tried to, keep pursuing it a bit more. But like it was still again, like I definitely started, I think, taking it a bit more like seriously and like starting to try to learn a bit more about like the ins and outs of social media a little bit because I'm like, well, that was really cool. How can I hopefully do something like that again?
Because are you doing this full time now?
Yeah.
You're full-time crochet creator, seller, everything.
Yeah.
Can I ask what you're doing beforehand?
So it's actually interesting. So I learned how to crochet like in my last year of university. So I was in school for social work. So I was finishing up my bachelor's, and my goal was to do my master's right when I finished. And so I was doing everything to get ready for that. Like so I purposely like was making sure I didn't have a job yet because like I was putting all my focus on my school. Like I was like, I'm gonna get like the best grades. I want the best chance of getting in. And then I didn't get it. And so it actually, for me, I'm like, that ended up being the biggest blessing because around that time I was like, oh, I'm a little disappointed that when I have to go to my master's, I'm gonna have to spend less time on crochet. Like I was kind of thinking those things a little bit. I was like, that's gonna kind of suck. So basically, once I didn't get in, I was like still bummed about that because like that was my whole kind of plan, and my social media was not at a place where I could like do any like making any sort of like full-time income. but I just like had a feeling about it. And so I was like, I'm just going to try it a little longer before I get like a job. I was like, I've been in school for so many years. I'm just going to take a break and I can do
Yeah.
crochet and then I'll get a job. And I kept being like, okay, just a few more months. And I was like, okay, just a couple more months and then I'll get a job. And so I kept pushing it, but then luckily I pushed it enough that then I started seeing, better and better results where I'm like, okay, hold on, maybe I could actually do this full time.
Yeah.
So I did get lucky in the sense that like I was sort of set up for a place where I wasn't like having to choose between like, okay, you're quitting your job and now you're fully, you know what I mean? So like it was just kind of lucky time wise that it made it a lot of an easier transition for me, I think. So it wasn't as tough of a decision to like make that leap, I guess.
Yeah. And so how long have you been doing this full time for now?
So now it's been, I guess, like, not that I was making necessarily full-time income the whole time, but like this for like I guess like 3 years now.
Oh wow, okay.
Well, yeah, 2 years and a half, like 2.5 years maybe, I think.
Yeah. Oh my god, I'm jealous.
Like, when did you start doing it full time? Because you're doing it.
I still haven't fully gone full time. Really? So I mean, I would say I'm doing it full time, but I still work part time in a restaurant because I live like inner city Melbourne, so the rent every week is like way too high. But I've quit doing corporate because I was like, I remember sitting inside the office every single day and just staring out and being like, I could do something else with my life. Like, what am I doing here? And then I quit that and I was like, I still need to afford rent. So I picked up a job in hospital, which still gets me like out and on my feet and stuff, which is nice to talk to people. And then I started focusing on this. And now I'm finally getting to a point where it's almost full.
That's good.
Time income. I mean, I could technically quit and I should be able to actually afford everything now. I just won't have like any money to hang out with friends or anything. So it's exciting and it's getting there.
Honestly, I just got really lucky and I was like living like my parents were supporting me as like while I was in school and everything, so it wasn't like again as big of a stressful thing for me. So I just got really lucky like time wise of when like if it was a year after that I learned, I probably would have been in a completely different situation where I had a job and like maybe I was living on my own, so I'd have to worry about the rent right away, and so like I was just very lucky about how it worked out.
And so with your growth on social media, was it quite quick?
I would say, I mean, quicker than some, but I don't like. I think it kind of like went through like little bits. Like I would say like the end of last year, around then it started really going quicker.
Was that when you reached 100K on Instagram? Was it end of last year?
Yeah, it was like end of last year. Like, I think it was like November. Because in the summer of last year, I hit 50K. And then like by November, I was at 100K. So like it definitely really excelled from there.
So fast.
Because like to hit the 50K, that took like, I don't know, I started my account near the end of like 2021, and then it was just last year that I hit 50. So I got like it really started going a lot quicker, I think, which is great. Like that helped a lot, right? So like, but like the thing is like I find when there's a huge growth like that, it's obviously great and with it, but there is like the downside. Then you get used to like that fast growth, and so then if it doesn't continue, you have to like again, kind of like I was saying before about like you have to adjust your like expectations kind of all the time based on things. So then when I wasn't like I was kind of worried during that time too. I was like, well, am I gonna feel like a failure when I'm not getting like so many views, like so many videos that are views, you know what I mean? And like I mean I feel like we'll talk about that as it goes on a bit more, but I would say now it's a bit more like chill. I'd say my growth, like it's going consistently up, but it's not like crazy as it was at that one point, which is I'm happy with. I'm happy with the consistency and predictability a bit more. So
because I mean, when you said you turned to full time, was there also like around the same time? Did you have like a plan for your like social media growth alongside your crochet business, or like was there much of a plan going on?
There wasn't like a huge plan. I would say like like if I'm being honest, my thing was just like if I want to do this, social media is the best way to do it. So like I basically imagined that my crochet business and my social media were like intertwined, like they it would be with that like one with not without the other, because I wasn't doing like markets or anything like that. So like for me it's like I'm selling all online, so for me like they're just so connected that like I consider them basically not the same thing, obviously, because you can have like 100K followers and make like 5 sales, but you know what I mean, like kind of the same sense of like trying to build them both together. So I think that was sort of the way I looked at it. And so I've never been one to like making specific goals of social media, being like, I want to hit this many followers by this date. I hate that,
Yeah.
and I know I'd be miserable when I didn't hit it. You know what I mean? Like if I would not hit my goals, I'd be like, well, I feel like a failure. But like, how much can you really do to to actually
Yeah.
control those?
Do you ever look back on your stats, or do you ever like actively look at your insights and everything across the apps to see good
Oh
times
yeah,
to post and things like that?
yeah.
We'll get
I
more
use
of this later,
insights a
but
lot. I
you
recommend
do?
people use it.
Okay.
Yeah, I love them. I think they're so helpful. I think they're just kind of fun to like just see those different
Yeah.
things. I don't know. I love looking at
Yeah.
them. I could totally nerd out about them, and I think like every different section of it I find helpful in different ways. But I love the my favorite sometimes is looking at unfollows and seeing if I can be like, what did I do to upset people that day?
Yeah.
I'm like,
You're like,
oh,
why did you all leave me?
and like, because now it's like it's not the end of the world. Like I lose, I think like 2,000 followers a month, which I'm like, it's for me, it's like I. I know, but for me, I'm like, well, I'd rather be growing people that I like, right? So like,
Oh
I mean, I
yeah.
cannot lose. Like I'm like my numbers are like I'm growing like by more than that. I'm not
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
declining, but still. And
Yeah.
so like I feel like if you told me that a while ago, I'd be like devastated by that number. But then I sort of realized like, well, those are not the people that like would be the most helpful to have as my followers,
Yeah.
anyways. Probably they're not liking my content. So
Yeah.
what benefit is that really, right? So when you start
Yeah,
like
I
shifting,
don't. If people like, if I had more unfollows than I had follows, but I had like the right crowd still following me, then it's like,
yeah, and like especially when it's like, well, if I'm losing 2,000, but I'm gaining like 10K, it's like, well, like
yeah,
if it's like it is like even still, it's easy to focus on those things. But like, well, why did they leave me?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah. No,
I
I know
don't
what you
like
mean.
you can't control everybody, and
And like, well, I mean, we'll talk about this very soon about like nurturing content. And there was, I can't remember the other one name of it, but like in saying that, yeah, I was like, I know like my brand tends to be more like make funny crochet videos, and I think as soon as I start making things that are like, here's my new pattern, and people are like, this isn't funny, and then they're like,
yeah,
I'm like, no, I do need to sell things,
yeah,
like
it's such a
please
weird
stick around.
yeah,
Please
yeah,
stick around for what I'm actually trying to sell here. I'm not just like
yeah.
making a joke every day. Going on your social media growth again, because now you're what I'd call a social media guru, especially in the crochet sphere. Going from where you started, when did you make that switch to be like, oh, you know what? Actually, I'm an expert in this. Like, I know what I'm doing. I can
I mean,
like,
it was definitely a slow thing. It basically, I think, a lot of people will start seeing probably like once you make a business, you'll start seeing a lot of those like social media accounts pop up as like suggestions, whatever.
yeah,
And a lot of times, like, so I try to learn stuff from there, but then I'd also find sometimes I'm like, well, that doesn't apply necessarily just selling handmade. Like when I was just selling plushies, I'd be like, okay, but some of that, like those advice, like sure, if I had like a product that I'm being manufactured, some of that advice would make sense, but
yeah,
those just things don't apply if you're making something handmade. Like there's just all these different things where I'm like,
yeah,
well, that just doesn't work. So it's a lot of like trial and error, I think, for me trying to figure out those things myself and figuring out like
yeah,
how to apply them.
yeah,
And then I think it was sort of when I started giving my friends some advice and things like that. And then my friend
yeah,
Sarah would always be like, "You're my social media manager," so like as a joke, but like she'd always ask me for advice, and I'd be like, "Well, here's why I would do a video like this, or like if you use this sort of text, like you might be able to get a better response because of this." When I'd start talking like that, my friends would be like, "Hey, you like I don't know how you know all that stuff." I was like, "Oh, okay,
yeah,
maybe this is
yeah,
share with others." So that's when I sort of like pivoted to also including like social media advice and stuff because I know
yeah,
that's honestly one of the questions I used to get asked all the time. Is like, how did you grow a social media account? Or like,
yeah,
how did you grow your crochet account media? And so I was like, well, I don't want to gatekeep this info. Like, it
yeah,
took
yeah,
me a while to
yeah,
figure out, but if I can make it easier for other people to figure out, why not? Because like in my
yeah,
mind, I'm like, I don't really think of it the same as like competition or anything like that. It's just like, everyone has their own niches, everyone has their own thing. Like, I think there's enough space for everybody
yeah,
to like grow in their own ways. So I love
yeah,
helping share
absolutely.
the info. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like if there's space on the social medias for an entire crochet community, I think there's space for everyone to kind of grow in their own ways on there too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, because like I mean, probably the last question in this kind of segment is more about your brand and how that developed throughout your social media growth. I mean, you said you started off making some of the food plushies, and that's what I would consider as your brand, and amongst being able to sit in an hoodie and well, not an hoodie, a what is it, a snuggie. Being
blanket
able to
hoodie.
sit in comfortable clothes and promote food plushies
Yeah.
and still make it to the top of what I consider like the crochet community social media accounts.
Just like everyone else, like I felt like awkward at first and like was self conscious
Yeah.
about being myself and like, felt like I had all those blocks. Like I feel like that's just something you kind of have to work through. And I just started caring
Yeah.
first. I guess I was gonna say the downfall, but I guess whatever like the opposite of a downfall would be when I got my first blanket hoodie, which was like not obviously my own one, but I was
Yeah.
wearing it all the time. I'm like, I don't want to take film content. It's like it's so
Yeah.
I'm like, shoot, I want to film this video, but like then it's a whole thing. If like, am I gonna have to go, do my makeup and do everything? So I was like, just don't, right? I was like, just
Yeah.
film this. And so when I started doing those kinds of videos, I think that like helped me just be a bit more comfortable being myself and just putting myself out here fully, because I always worried I was like, well, you're not a very aesthetic person. Like I'm so messy. I don't have a nice yarn wall. My yarn is in bins all knotted together. Like I just like I have no ability to make anything look nice and pretty and stuff. So I was
Yeah.
like, well, that's just not going to be who I am. And I was worried like that would just make me not be able to grow. But I just kind
Yeah.
of realized along the way that luckily I can figure out my own way to go about
Yeah.
doing things. And, not everyone has to fit in that rigid box of like, this is how you have to be. You have to have your yarn wall and everything has to be, in front of
Yeah.
it. And that, like you can just, I think there's enough room for people to just do whatever and hope it, works for them and be themselves.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like the transition of how I slowly just got more and more comfortable to sort of make that who I am and my brand. And like, yeah, my food animals became, again, it just happened to be that early on I made one food animal and I still wasn't sure it was going to be my whole brand, but slowly I just kind of got obsessed with making them.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is just what I'm doing now.
I mean, even in saying that, like, even for myself, like, I remember once my brother, because he was really into YouTube and film many years ago, and he said to me, he's like, if you're doing any kind of filming and anything like that, he's like, just have the same background every single time. Like, because people instantly recognize you, they'll like recognize your background, and then that's already like an advantage, which we'll get into in the strategies part.
I always I still want a yarn wall. I just don't have one day maybe. But like I don't know if you saw, but like a while ago, because I've been trying to get like a nice background or something too, and so I got this thing. And it was like a 3-sided thing, and it was supposed to look, I don't know, like a nice screen. Like it had like wooden panels, and then it was like in between it was like this white. I don't know. I thought it was nice, and everyone said it looked like a jail. They're like, it looks like you're in like prison. So again, this is not looking nice and aesthetic is not my expertise clearly. So
yeah, no. Yeah. I mean, I've got my yarn wall, which is like, it's nice to have. I like just like waking up and seeing all the colors. And like, I'm a person who has to like, I know sometimes yarn walls, like someone turned German. Yarn walls can be like, I know there's like a discussion around them being like, what is it, an expression of over consumerism or even like a bit of like a flaunting your money kind of thing. But for me, I need to have like this visual in front of me when I'm like looking at colors. I need to see like the whole color wheel to be like, okay, what do I have and what can I pick? It's the same with me in like calendars. I need to have like a full calendar in front of me to plan out everything.
I want them. But okay, my question is like, do you actually like go and use that yarn, or like do you have other yarn you use so you don't?
No, that's my yarn stash. Okay. I do have like a couple of tubs like in storage, but that's all like acrylic yarn that I don't use anymore.
Yeah, I have like a bin of that.
Sorry, acrylic.
Yeah, I haven't used any of it yet.
Rest in peace. Anyway, okay, well, let's take a little break now and then we'll kick back off with the next episode about strategies and challenges and advice from you, the social media guru.
Wow, guru, thank you.
Thanks everyone for listening on in. That was the end of episode 1. I will be bringing you episode 2 very shortly. If you enjoyed this kind of content, please don't forget to give us I guess it's a rating over on these podcast apps. Otherwise, a like, subscribe, comment, wherever it is. Just engage with the content. We all appreciate it. You can find mine and Croutonscrochet's links in the YouTube comment section. Otherwise, I believe somewhere here in the podcast section too. So see you on the next episode.